And welcome everybody to the final yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host, Louis Song. I am joined by Eric Squared, Eric Wiedeke, and Coach Eric Smith. And the Miami Dolphins have kept their playoff hopes just that much more alive by beating the San Francisco 49ers. Granted, it was at Hard Rock Stadium, but they did beat them. Dolphins scored 29 points. Most of them came from Jason Sanders. 49ers only scored 17. So we're going to get into everything that we saw today, everything that was good, everything that was bad, but mostly we're just going to kind of talk about what we ultimately feel, if there's anything that we can take away from this experience. But before we get into all that really quickly, just have to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you by our good friends over at the Real Estate Shoppe.
The Final Yard is sponsored for the entire 2024 Dolphins season by the Real Estate Shoppe. Before you make a final decision about who should be your real estate broker, make sure you reach out to Amanda Martin and Javier Iglesias, the dynamic duo leading the Real Estate Shoppe, which combines market expertise with a passion for community and personalized service. They offer honest and professional real estate services, guiding buyers and sellers with integrity and a client-first approach. From pricing to negotiation, they ensure every step is smart and transparent. They operate in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. They understand the local markets like no one else. Their deep knowledge of these areas helps clients navigate the complicated nuances of home ownership in South Florida. So reach out to them. Again, it's the Real Estate Shoppe. You can find them on Instagram at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. That's 954-268-9812. Before you make a final decision about real estate, reach out to the Real Estate Shoppe.
Alrighty, guys. So Miami ended up winning this game, and I know that there were a lot of people out there who were fully expecting things to go sour at the last minute. I admittedly was one of them. I was expecting things to go sour at the very last minute because that's just how things seem to go for Miami. But nevertheless, and this is a big deal because it's Miami dealing with this stuff. Miami has defeated San Francisco, which also means Mike McDaniel has defeated his old mentor, as it were, Kyle Shanahan. So make of that what you will. I know that there are a lot of people who are like, well, that's not impressive because Kyle Shanahan has his own struggles going on right now in San Francisco. And it also doesn't do anything to defeat the narrative of Miami actually beats teams with winning records, because currently San Francisco is now 6-9 on the year. But San Francisco, for the past several seasons, has been seen as a perennial playoff team. In fact, they've also been seen as Super Bowl contenders up until now. So now I'll go ahead and I'll ask the question, and I'll start with you, Coach Eric. Do you give Miami any credit for beating the 6-8 49ers? Because this was, in some ways, it still was a big game for them. It's just that they weren't a winning record this year. Do the 49ers having a bad year basically make it that this was no longer impressive for them?
I wouldn't call it impressive, but I think there is still credit to give here. I mean, the 49ers were just as banged up as what the Dolphins have been this year. They're not a good team. They're not disciplined. We saw them have a bunch of mental mistakes. We saw them, not even able to line up right? All stuff that we've done in the past that we've seen. But at the same time, like, McDaniel has had problems defeating, some of the, his previous mentors, the guys he's worked with that run the same system. I think that when we look at big picture of what this game could mean, I was really pleased with the fact that McDaniel actually stuck to the run game, right? And that paid off big at the end of the game there. And that's not something that we've always seen McDaniel able to do. So I think there is, some small victories to take here that hopefully carry into, next year, assuming that McDaniel returns. But, I don't consider this, some massive celebratory win that we're saying that we, busted all kinds of narratives. I think it's just a small step in the right direction.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. It kind of struck me looking at these two teams, just how similar they are to each other. Because San Francisco's issues on both sides of the ball were very similar to a lot of Miami's issues. The protection for Brock Purdy was not very good in this game whatsoever. And then on top of that, the penalties were a killer for San Francisco, which I didn't realize how undisciplined they were going to be going into this game. Their defense was a really bad performance. But to give the Dolphins some credit, I do like a couple of things that I saw. Number one, was Devon Achane hurt the last like 6-7 weeks? Because he looked not even joking. He looked a lot more elusive today in open space than he had been in previous years. Oh, hey Duke. It's always good to get a comment from Duke here. But he looked more elusive than he has in the last I don't know how long. And the other thing that kind of struck me was, aside from a certain player's drops, and we will get to that, the other thing that struck me in this game was, number one, Teron Armstead is your captain along the offensive line this year. Next year, number 55 is your captain along the offensive line, and it's not even close. But it kind of felt like McDaniel reached into his bag of tricks in the run game in a way that he hadn't for a while this season. He was just a lot of the, and maybe this is just me playing the results because they ran the ball more effectively today, but I felt like there were things that he was doing in the run game. The pitchbacks on the runs up the middle, I felt like we hadn't seen that a lot in the past few weeks. They had kind of gone away from motioning Durham Smythe and Julian Hill, at least to the degree that they did it in today's game. In today's game, I would say maybe on half the runs you had a tight end in motion prior to the snap. So it just felt like he kind of emptied out his bag of tricks here a little bit. And I wonder if maybe that's a consequence of having a healthier offensive line with Isaiah Wynn back, with Kendall Lamb back, with Teron Armstead back. Maybe he felt a little bit more comfortable going into some of those more complex plays. So that was an interesting thing to me. But overall, I mean, I'm really encouraged by a couple of things. Number one, no. We're not doing this. I still think that the season is over. I'm not Tony Romo. I'm not going to sit here and tell you 30 times how the Dolphins get into the playoffs, because it's not happening. Indianapolis, just because they haven't won 3 games in a row all season, does not mean they're going to lose to the Giants or the Jaguars in the next 2 weeks. They're not making the playoffs, but we can still be encouraged by things aside from that. Like Malik Washington, like Chop Robinson, like, the run game having some life, like Jeff Wilson being used in short yardage situations. So, you're looking at this team right now, and you're kind of evaluating what can you carry over into the next season. And I think there were a couple things you could carry over. So it's not, oh my God, you finally slayed the dragon here, you beat a good team, but it's, you got back to the formula of what made the offense successful. And this is a game where the offense could get to 35. This is a game where the offense should have put up 35, 38 points.
No, it should have been a blowout. It really should have. So this is where I'm at right now as far as everything that I saw. I can't, just because the 49ers were struggling this year, I can't just summarily dismiss that the last 2 seasons, and because they've still had their basic core, like they still have Debo, they still have Brock Purdy, they still have George Kittle in there. So that counts for. Listen, then they were playoff contenders the past 2 years.
Yeah, but they're trenches.
Okay, but you know what that tells me? Unless we're willing to come up here and say, you know what, Kyle Shanahan deserves to be fired because his offensive line sucks, then we can't do the same thing for Mike McDaniel. Because once again, we have the same problem. If the trenches are no good, or if they're not good enough, your team is not going to be good. So here we are once again talking about the offensive line. Why Robert Jones had a bad day again. That we need more talent. We need more talent up front.
Let's be careful with that though, because when you had 3rd and 3 and you made the decision to go extremely conservative and San Francisco got the ball back, if the defense does not
make that stop,
if the defense doesn't bail you out, it does reflect poorly on McDaniel. But we don't live in that hypothetical world.
No, we don't.
So,
we always end up playing the results. If the Dolphins win, then it was a brilliant game. If they lose, then he's an idiot. That's kind of how these things go.
Right, but what I'm saying is that 3rd and 3 sequence, not the best. Not the best.
No, absolutely
in a critical
not.
point in the game.
Like, there's these situations where we keep looking at what Miami is doing. They were able to run the football today. They were able to run the ball today. And Jeffrey, Coach Eric says that Eichenberg actually had a pretty decent day altogether. Everybody knows my feelings about Eichenberg. I've voiced them so many times that I feel like anything else that I could say is just repeating myself for the umpteenth time. I am very happy to replace him next year. I really want some more talent. I wouldn't mind getting Isaiah Wynn back on another 1-year deal now that he's actually healthy. I really wouldn't. I would love to bring Isaiah Wynn back again. That's just my thoughts on that, even if it's just as a depth piece. But I am at the point with this offense. There are certain pieces that are required to really bring this thing out to its full potential. Number one, Tyreek Hill needs to get his wrist surgery. Oh my God. Like, I don't know if that's the reason why he suddenly has hands of stone, but my Lord, he dropped 3 passes today. 2 of them were touchdowns. And that's just not acceptable. If you're supposed to be the best player in the league, which you were voted as by your peers, then you better be able to catch the doggone football. I don't care where it's at. So get your wrist surgery, come back and play for us 1 more year, because again, his money is too much to get rid of next year. I refuse to say otherwise. It's just too much. We don't have the cash, Eric.
You saved $19 million post June 1st, though.
Yeah, but we also kill ourselves with dead cap.
You take a hit, but you
hit.
You legitimately save money doing that.
Massive hit.
$19 million isn't nothing. That's 19 you didn't have to spend elsewhere.
Nope. I'm not taking a net loss like that. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I will keep Tyreek around 1 more year. Let him get his wrist surgery. Make it so that he can actually play football again properly and not just be a really fast decoy. Move on in 2026, but that's fine. Tyreek, Waddle, you give Jonnu Smith a contract and make it whatever he wants, doggone it, because he's become. Remember what Ryan Tannehill had in Jarvis Landry back in the day? That is what Tua has right now in Jonnu Smith. Like, he's just the guy that I'm in trouble, I'm going to find Jonnu, and there it is. And he's always there. He's always there. It's a thing of beauty to be able to see a tight end. I can't remember the last time that we had a tight end. I think it was probably Charles Clay that Miami had such a weapon in that position that we could count on consistently.
That's an insult to Jonnu. He is so much better than Charles.
I'm saying
Clay.
The last time we felt
I like Charles Clay, but Jonnu's a Pro Bowler. The Dolphins haven't had that.
I agree. Jonnu is probably the best. You know how many now that I think about it, we've tried so many times to fill the tight end void with free agency and trade. I remember the Julius Thomas move.
Oh, yeah, I remember being excited about him. Who was the guy that they brought in from the Jets that
was Dustin. God, I can't remember the guy's name.
Keller.
Yeah,
Dustin Keller. And he was good for a little while.
For that one play in the preseason, man, he was great.
Doggone it. I guess kind of Jordan Cameron, maybe a little bit.
No.
Like, he had his flashes, I guess. And then there was the Gesicki thing for a little while, but that didn't last long. But no, like, the most consistent tight end weapon that we've had that we can count on, Jonnu Smith. Oh, my bloody good night. Give this man a 4-year contract. Do not let him leave. Like, extend him now. Don't wait, because he's just going to get more expensive. So we have that going for them. Malik Washington looks like he's going to be really good. And by the way, he's a very willing blocker. We can actually move on from River Craycraft if we really want to next year because of Malik Washington. So, and I know that it's not like, oh, Craycraft, what a horrible loss. It's like, yeah, I understand. I get it. But the only way Craycraft comes back next year is if he's on the practice squad and he's basically like a special teams ace if something goes wrong, which I'd be okay with if he's willing to deal with that. But I think we're okay to move on from Craycraft. So I guess you could make Washington wide receiver 4. Miami needs to get a big-bodied receiver. They need a big-bodied receiver. Like find somebody in the 3rd round maybe who has some developmental skills. He's got some size to him. He's got some decent hands. Maybe he's not the fastest guy in the world. I know Mike McDaniel's like addiction to speed, but like you need somebody who can go up there and get those jump balls, because if you're going to have Tua throwing it near the sidelines and like making a jump ball, you can't expect Tyreek to just launch himself 10 feet in the air and come down with it anymore. You need somebody who can actually lower the margin, or raise the margin for error, because you need somebody who can make it so that if Tua's not right on the money, he can still come down with it. He still needs to be able to come down with the ball. And that's important. If you can do that, and the last 2 things, of course, guards, fix the guards. Oh my God. Whether that's with Isaiah Wynn and a draft pick, or whether it's with 2 draft picks, or whether it's free agent, I don't care. Get some better guards in there. More consistent, higher ceiling guards. The ceiling for Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg is so painfully low, I could probably bump my head on it. So I need somebody that I can say, you know what, this guy could be really good in a few years, if not right now. That's what I'm looking for in my guard. If you can get all that, then Achane will be able to run freely. This running game is designed to make it so that running backs will have good lanes and that it's easy for the offensive line to function. It's designed that way. And if we're still only just now, this game is the first time in like 5 weeks that we've seen them actually have any level of success running the football. I don't know what changed, other than the fact that Armstead was back and Isaiah Wynn came in every once in a while to rotate in. And I know and he had that last Devon Achane touchdown. He was the one who opened up the hole for him to run through. So that's got to count for something. Just consistency. Be good. I don't even need you to be great. I just need you to be good on a consistent basis. Not really great one play and then you're awful for 2 plays and then you're meh for another play. I can't deal with that. There's no offensive line on the world that can keep up with that level of inconsistency, because you're going to have Achane run right once and he's going to be able to break for 20. And then the next play, he's going to lose 5 because somebody tripped. That's not a good formula. So this offense has the core. It has the pieces. And I think that we need to, at the very least, acknowledge that this offense has more meat on the bone than what we're assuming. And it's not looking good right now. I will grant you that. Like we're still struggling a little bit. We're not finding opportunities deep downfield. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe that injury to Tyreek really is something they're taking into account. I don't know.
But are we? And this is going to go counter to what I've been saying all year long. But number one, this isn't against a good team. You still have to see this kind of performance against a legitimate defense. But we're not saying that about the deep passing if Tyreek Hill catches those 2 touchdowns. We're saying that they finally hit on those 2 deep balls. But I will say this, even though they were drops, I still think that those plays had the desired effect on the defense, in that San Francisco still had to respect it because the ball was there. It was all on time. And from their perspective, because you can't just assume Tyreek Hill is going to keep dropping those passes, they're like, ooh, we caught a break. We need to be ready for that. And so you're still getting the defense to adjust in the way that you want them to, regardless of whether those passes are caught or not. To go back to the larger point on the offense, I would like to see something done along the line. I'm not going to be so rigid as to say position, in terms of, whether you need a guard or a tackle, because I'm still, if you're in the right position and you are in love with a tackle prospect, I'm still okay with Austin Jackson at guard. I'm still okay with it. He's played there before. So it's not like you'd be throwing him at a completely new position. And he's been pretty good there before. The second thing is I'm still adding a big running back. Because I think it is crucial in those short yardage situations. I mean, the thing that I liked the most about seeing that Jeff Wilson run was he didn't just get the 2 yards you needed. He actually kept his legs turning and got an extra 3 yards on that play, even with guys hanging on to him. You need a running back that can make that happen for you at least semi-consistently. And then the last thing is, yes, I do think you need a big body receiver. I would be amenable to moving on from Tyreek Hill in the offseason post June 1st when you can save money. I know it hurts you against the cap a little bit, but that's still $19 million to improve the roster in 2025 that you wouldn't otherwise have. And you don't even have to choose between big or fast. I don't know if the Dolphins know this. They make them big and fast these days. You don't necessarily have to choose both or one or the other. You can get a guy that's 6'2" and runs a 4.3.
I want a 6'3". I want 6'3" or above.
That's
6'3" or above.
6'2" is perfectly fine.
We have 6'2" receivers. I think River Craycraft is one.
River Craycraft is 6'1", number one. Number two, he does not play to that size.
Hold on. I'm going to look. I'm going to look. Somebody on here is listed. I know he is. Let's see. Well, everybody's freaking injured, so that doesn't help. Let's go look through this list here. There you go. Grant Dubois, 6'2".
No. Okay. Yeah. And he was supposed to be a big body receiver, was he not?
I don't know. I don't even know what he was supposed to be, man. He got here and he didn't do anything.
But physically, look at Grant Dubois and look at the rest of the Dolphins receiver room. That's a big enough difference for me to say, okay, that's a big body receiver.
I'll need to check out the Packers tape because Miami's tape is very limited.
But regardless of all that, I obviously I'm talking about somebody a little bit better than Grant Dubois. I'm looking for a receiver that can go up and make those contested catches. And if anything, I want to move Tyreek, not just because of the fact that, he's not what he used to be maybe, or, the contract is bloated or what have you. I also just want to make room in the wide receiver room. And I also want to free that money up to address other positions, because we can talk about a Jonnu Smith extension, but I don't know how you're going to do that without moving some money around. And that might be necessary in order to get something like that done. Granted, there are a bunch of cap machinations, impossible to say right now. And I think you can go into a season with, you have Waddle, you have Washington, you have insert big body wide receiver, and you are completely fine with that top three at your receiver position, with Jonnu Smith at tight end, with Devon Achane being the weapon that he is out of the backfield. You're completely fine there.
You could I'm agreeing with you on Tyreek moving on. It's the timing that I don't. With that being said, regardless of when Tyreek leaves, if you really don't want to lose the impact that someone like a Tyreek has, I would honestly, truly look very hard at moving Devon Achane to wide receiver. I'm so dead serious. Make room for that big body running back you want, and let Devon Achane become the new Tyreek and let him run around and run routes with Waddle.
I think that Achane should be used in a similar role to what the 49ers did with Debo today, in the sense that, yeah, he's a hybrid type player, but he's a guy that you can play out of the backfield as well as a guy that you can split out wide. I mean, I know that when Achane was drafted, I had that same thought about making him a wide receiver, because he does compare favorably, build and speed wise to Tyreek, and somebody that could replace some of those elements. But he's also, shown some really good ability in the backfield. Like Eric, you mentioned before, what was the difference with Achane today? And I've talked about this throughout the season that Achane this year versus Achane last year, the vision just doesn't seem to be there. And I don't know whether it was, that he was really trying to press and make bigger plays than what was there. But today, and obviously got to see it from the end zone angle, see how the reads line up. But to me, it felt like, he was really reading stuff well. He was running decisively and hitting that hole. I don't think that's something that I take away completely and move him just to a wide receiver position. But I do like the idea of, having somebody else as your, even as Jalen Wright, as your starting running back and Achane starting the game as a wide receiver. And then as you go around, having him be that chess piece that moves around and does still get carries from the backfield as well.
That's where I'm at too. Like, you use that versatility. Like, Tyreek should have been getting this kind of treatment. Tyreek should have been the Debo of this defense a long time ago. Or listen to me, the offense. Because we kept saying, when McDaniel showed up here, who's going to be Miami's Debo Samuel? And we got Tyreek Hill. And we're like, oh my God, Tyreek is an upgrade over Debo. But we ultimately never really used him in that kind of a role. He just kind of became
I don't think we could. Like, Tyreek doesn't run through tackles the way Debo does. Like,
neither does Achane.
Am I crazy for wanting to see Malik out of the backfield a little bit? Because he's a similar size to Tyreek and to Devon Achane, but he does bring he brings more of a physical running style than either of those two guys when it comes to breaking tackles with physicality rather than just making guys miss, which he can do, but I'd be a little intrigued to see that.
I agree with that as well. Like, you talked about that Jeff Wilson run earlier where he was able to finish the run and get yards after contact. And as well as Achane played, there were definitely a couple plays today where, it felt like he got within 2 yards of the first down marker, for example, and it was just, he's done, right? No extra yards there. Whereas, somebody like Washington has shown that he's a bit more of a physical runner. And if we get him the ball in that intermediate area, that he's got the potential to finish those runs that, instead of being, coming up a yard short on fourth down, that we're finishing it and extending drives.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the defensive side of the ball. Highlight of the game, bar none, Chop Robinson.
Ooh,
you were going a different direction.
I was going to go with the game seal interception.
Yeah, but Calais Campbell's the one who set that up for him. So, I mean, I'll give credit to Kohu for being in the right place at the right time and making the catch. Javon Holland couldn't. But I will say, the only reason that happened was because, once again, 38-year-old Calais Campbell, my God, how is there any way we can bring him back next year? Can we convince him to go on year 18 and continue to play alongside Zach Sealer? Because as much as I love Christian Wilkins, listen, you want to talk about Chris Greer and being a bad GM and making bad decisions. Look, for all the bad decisions he's made, picking up Calais Campbell and putting him next to Sealer, we haven't missed a beat. I feel like we could have missed Wilkins because of the amount of snaps that he plays. But when Campbell's in there, I don't miss Christian Wilkins. I just don't. I really don't miss him. And it's sad because I love the guy. I think he's really good. And he and Zach Sealer were deadly. So is Campbell and Sealer.
I mean, that's what you get when you add a guy who is a first ballot Hall of Fame talent.
Okay, but you know what? And Ndamukong Suh could have also been that guy, and he's been MIA for a while.
No, he could not have, because Ndamukong Suh is, and I'm going to say this with relative to position averages, Ndamukong Suh is a normal-sized human being for an NFL defensive tackle. Calais Campbell is Patrick Paul-sized on the inside. And I get that there are some big guys on the inside on the defensive line in the NFL. Calais Campbell is a monster among monsters as far as his build goes, which I think is gone a long way to helping with his longevity. And I don't think he's shown any inclinations that he wouldn't be open to playing next season if it came to it. I would put one caveat, though. I still need them to draft somebody along the interior, partially because I could not envision a better mentor in that room than Calais Campbell if he is around next year. And that's how you replenish those positions and make that, because Calais Campbell, as good as he is, can't be your only plan to be the guy next to Sealer next year. So I would still draft somebody to kind of learn under Campbell, but I'm absolutely all for Campbell coming back if he's open to it.
Well, we only have so many draft picks, at least high ranking ones. So we basically need to come to I get the feeling, I know that Ron hates draft talk, but when we start doing Pulse, like, we're going to have a lot of debate on what Miami needs to focus on with their high level draft picks, which Miami has a couple of thirds thanks to compensatory. They have a first, they have a second, they've got all that good stuff. What are we going to invest in at the highest levels? And that's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out. I don't think pass rush is going to be something that they're going to emphasize, but if once again, not that I'm not going to sit here and try to make a case that Chris Grier needs to retain his job or whatever. But what I will say is that the picks that Miami made this year, it's looking like it's going to be enough for Chris Grier to make his own case to Stephen Ross. I still deserve to have my job. Because Chop Robinson looks like a home run. We're liking what we're seeing from Patrick Paul. Malik Washington looks like he's going to pan out, and that's a 6th round pick. I can't remember the rest of the draft picks. Patrick McMorris, Jalen Wright. I don't know about Jalen Wright yet. That's still, the jury's still out on him. We still need to see more from all the running backs at this point. Just again, this season has not been friendly for the running backs.
Though, honestly speaking, in a McDaniel in a Shanahan system, it's really very running back friendly. And again, this is outside of those short yardage situations. I feel very comfortable with, almost most running backs being able to succeed here as long as the offensive line is sound in their blocking schemes and everybody's, tending to their assignment correctly. So I think Jalen Wright will probably be fine. Next season, I think that they're just kind of slow playing him because, you've got Mostert and you've got HN. You don't have to, involve him right now, right away.
That means you're projecting now 4 hits for Chris Grier in the 2024 draft out of the 7 picks that he actually made. And we haven't even seen much of Mo Camara, Patrick McMorris, and we see nothing of Taj Washington so far. So that's, if you really want Chris Grier fired, you need to Chop Robinson to not look as good as he does, because my God, like, in many ways, that explosiveness off the edge, he looks like the second coming of Cam Wake. He really does. Like, he blows people away with how fast he gets there. And every time Chop gets around the edge, he just kind of bends underneath the guy. That means the quarterback steps up in the pocket and boom, he gets hugged by Sealer and Campbell. Like, that is the best. He's getting his sack numbers now, but even early on in the season, that's exactly what he was doing, applying pressure and giving it so that Zach Sealer can finish the job. And that's without Jalen Phillips on the other end. That's without Bradley Chubb on the other end. That's without even Tyus Bowser, of all guys. Like, if you're looking for another pass rusher who can kind of take a spell, Bowser's had his moments. Quentin Bell's had his moments. Ogba has had his moments. But they're not starter. They're not guys you want as starters on the other side. That's where Jalen Phillips comes in. If you put Jalen Phillips on the other side of Chop Robinson next year and you keep Zach Sealer, and, well, you're going to keep Sealer. If you manage to retain Calais Campbell, like, I don't know. I guess Father Time doesn't exist for him. Or maybe he's just that big. I don't know. But if you have those 4 dudes on your defensive line, your defense looks a lot better. It really does, because now you have 2 pass rushers on the edges, 2 guys who can get up the middle. What more do you need? What more do you need? I feel like this defense That's the biggest issue it is with Miami, isn't it? It's like they're always right there on the cusp. They just need that one more thing, that one last piece, like one little missing part of the puzzle that we just need to add, and we'll be good. And then it always turns into something else.
Yeah, but part of that is not, continuing to churn coaches and stuff like that. Like how many years do we get with the same coordinator before we switch? When we're, might be, 1 year we feel like we're close, and then the next year there's a drop off, and then we get rid of that coordinator. So, if you want to see those final steps happen, you got to keep the same systems in and continue to build that up. And, so that the players that you're drafting that may not be contributing right now are developing in that system, so that when they do get the opportunity to get on the field, then they can be productive. Like, I feel like that has, and I've said this before, has been the biggest hindrance to the Dolphins, progressing is the coaching churn more than anything. And a lot of it's been justified. It's been bad choices in terms of coaching. But, if we can't get the right guys and we can't get more than 2-3 years out of a coordinator, then you're going to stay in the same cycle that we've been in.
Can we move on from Danny Crossman, though?
Absolutely.
Okay, just checking. It's like, how much continuity do we need?
He's been around far too long already. To the point with the defense, my whole thing is this. If you're trying to build a defense where you're good everywhere, it's not going to happen.
Let me just quickly address. Duke says the defense needs an enforcer. They do have one. His name is Jordan Brooks. All right, go ahead, Eric.
Hopefully he's
healthy. Jordan Brooks is fine. I think he's just got a Charlie horse. He took a knee right to the thigh there. That did look pretty painful.
But he is the enforcer.
I think he'll be fine.
He's the enforcer on this defense.
What I'm looking for, and I think the reason why, and I'm gonna just put it out there. Unless there's like a stud offensive lineman available round one at the tackle or anywhere along the offensive line, or a safety that you absolutely can't pass up. I don't love drafting safeties before late round one, really, personally, unless it's a guy that is going to be a Pro Bowler. I'm in on interior defensive line, because I look at the defensive line and I say, okay, that's the closest unit on this defense to being elite. And you need to pick, okay, what are we going to build our defense around? Well, you look at the secondary and you say, okay, our safeties are really weak. Ramsey's a little older. Fuller's a little older. Maybe it's not the best idea to try to build around that. We need to build around the defensive line, and really create that identity around being strong up front, because it builds you, it's a built-in margin of error for your defensive backfield. Because if the quarterback doesn't have the ability to sit back and scan the field, then you can live with maybe having, a second corner that's not, a lockdown guy that's kind of, okay, we have to hide him a little bit. You can live with that if your line is just living in the backfield. And I think that that's where you need to make that choice, because I just think there's too many holes in the secondary to build. And I think you're just in a better position when you are strengthening a strength to the point where it's like, okay, well, we can legitimately have the best defensive line in the NFL if we add an elite, level interior force there to go along with a Chop, a Jalen, a Sealer, Campbell if he returns. So I think that's where I would lean with the defense. As far as continuity with the coordinators go, I don't know, man. The league seems to really like Anthony Weaver, and that decision may be taken out of the Dolphins' hands at this point, which would be a real shame, because I like Anthony Weaver quite a bit. I think he's done a very good job with the defense that's actually significantly worse talent-wise than it was last season. So it would be a shame if he were to move on. But I mean, if he does, good for him. He'd be getting a head coaching job. But I do hope that he's back next year so that they can continue to build something.
I'm not convinced that Weaver's going to go anywhere. And the reason why is because there are a lot of other guys who have, I guess you could say, more results for head coaching. Like, I'm sure that there are going to be people interviewing Vic Fangio again. And I don't know if Fangio wants to be a head coach at this point, but I think he will get an interview. I think he will.
No, if the league is telling Bill Belichick he's too old, the league will tell Vic Fangio he's too old.
No one would dare tell Bill. They're not a matter of Bill Belichick is not. If Bill Belichick just came in and said, "I want to coach and you can do everything else," that's fine. He would be a coach again. Bill Belichick's problem is he wants to be the coach and the GM and the owner, and basically he wants to do all those things. Just like Aaron Rodgers, he wants to run the whole doggone show. So that's the reason why Belichick is not coaching in the NFL right now, is because he wants full control and no team is willing to give it to him. So the same, I would say. You're going to get Mike Vrabel, who's going to get hired as a head coach again. I think, honestly, Brian Flores probably has a better shot right now because his defense is rocking and rolling right now for the most part. I'm not saying Weaver won't get an interview. I'm saying he's not likely to get hired.
Ben Johnson
will likely get hired somewhere. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Is like, I'm sure Weaver will get interviews. I don't think he gets hired. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that Weaver may have a better chance over Flores just because Weaver really knows how to talk to a room and stuff like that. But, when you look at, yes, he has done a good job with this group, with the group that he's been given, but I don't know that the product that he's put on the field this year is enough to get him that head coaching job. And to your point, Eric, when I think of team building, right, I think of building up the middle, right, on both sides of the ball, from quarterback to center to interior defensive line, linebackers, safeties. And I think that you can get away with some lesser cornerbacks, right, if you can create those third and long situations and you can create that pass rush like you talked about. But, I feel like, we're still really struggling at linebacker outside of Jordan Brooks, and our safety play is awful. And we've seen, with Tua, we saw Purdy doing it today, that you can negate that pass rush by, dinking and dunking over the middle. And we've got to be able to find guys that can rally to the ball and make tackles, right? And I think that's, for me, defensively, and we have limited resources. We've in this conversation today, we've added 10 to 15 players on the offense and could probably do the same thing on the defense. So you're not going to be able to fill all those holes, just through the draft. And, free agency is always a crapshoot in terms of the, the damaged goods that you're getting there. But I really feel like for this defense to take that next step, I mean, Jordan Brooks is a good piece in the middle, as well as Anthony Walker played when he first came in. And I don't know if, the injury is still lingering for him, but there's been a drop off there. But the safeties have to be better. And I'm not crazy about using a first round pick on a safety. It's a low value position, and, Greer typically doesn't go that way, even though he did invest a first in Minka, and, Holland was a second round pick as well. So it's not unheard of. But I think that for this defense to really take the next step, we really have to find a lot better play from the safety position.
And that's what I'm looking at right now. Anthony Weaver's defense, if it's going to be based on what Baltimore does, then yes, it's important that you get some good safeties. I'm just looking at what the potential list of safeties who would be available in free agency, because I've kept saying over and over again, and I have to stand by what I said, is that every year there's at least a few safeties that end up coming clear, and they'll be available for them to be picked up. So I'm looking at more than likely people who will be available in 2025. We're looking at Justin Reed for the Kansas City Chiefs, according to Spotrac. That's what I'm looking at right now, just to go through my list. Justin Simmons will be available again, coming back from Atlanta. Tyrann Mathieu, that's another option. And I get it, they're a little on the older side, but I mean, Tyrann Mathieu's had a strong reputation for a long time. Justin Simmons, everybody, even this past year, Justin Simmons, everybody was like, "Oh, Justin Simmons, let's go get Justin Simmons."
You know who had a real strong reputation for a long time?
Jordan Poyer.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he also had Buffalo's scheme, and he also had his boy Micah Hyde next to him.
Can we please just get a
was great
little younger
Buffalo
on
before he
defense?
came here.
Just a smidge younger on defense.
Okay. Let's take a look at Marcus Epps for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm just going if we're gonna we can't. The lower down the list I go, the less expensive they get, which usually means that they're not quite as highly rated. Marcus Epps is 28, so
you could get a solid starting safety on day 2 in the draft.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
That would be my first inclination, and then go with a cheaper option as your second player there, and let them battle it out between that player and Patrick McMorris.
By the way, just so I can clarify one more time, more than likely, as much as we're talking about these old safeties, every year, even though this is the list as it stands right now, every year there's and just a purge of expensive veteran safeties that Miami will be able to choose from in the second wave of free agency. I am 100% sure of that. So they will have their options. And Duke in the chat bringing up how Jalen Ramsey's likely moving to safety within a year or two. So I guess we can always look forward to that.
Which might put cornerback on the map as a position that could be drafted round 1 if they want to push that move to safety.
Can we do the thing that Washington did and see if maybe we can turn Cam Smith into a safety, since it doesn't look like it's happening at corner?
I thought you were gonna say and pick up somebody's throwaway like Noah Igbenogany.
Hey, listen, for all the crap that we were talking about, Noah Igbenogany. Do you know how many years I said you can vouch for this? Duke can vouch for this. Ron can vouch for this. Everybody can vouch for this. I screamed to the heavens for years. Can we just see what Igbenogany does at safety, just for for the kicks and giggles? Just let's see what happens. And sure enough, he's a safety now for Washington, and it actually looks like he's pretty good.
Also, as unpopular as it is, and I know this is unpopular right now, it's a hugely unpopular sentiment. I'm not ready to give up on Cam Smith just yet. Give him a full off season. Let's see what camp looks like with him. I'm not there yet to say that he's I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. And maybe that's just me reacting to Igbenogany playing well in Washington. But
as a safety.
No. He's too slight for that. He's not the open field tackler.
No, but what I'm saying is that the reason Igbenogany looks good is because he moved from corner to safety, which means there was a position change.
No, he's playing nickel. He's their main nickel.
And some safety. He's being called a safety by a lot of guys. So he's basically working as a completely different position than what he was before. So if you want to hang on to Cam Smith and give him an opportunity to prove himself, listen, then move him around. See if you can make him a nickel. I don't care. But one way or another, you're going to have to find, if you want to make him work, find the spot where it works. And if it doesn't work, move on quickly. It's okay. Admitting that you were wrong is better than trying to make fetch happen, e.g. Liam Eichenberg. And I kind of don't want to trust preseason and training camp hype anymore, because the most hyped off-season corner that we had on the whole freaking roster was Ethan Bonner, and he has not been able to sniff the field all year.
So I think there's a little bit of a conflation of what I'm saying here. I'm not saying don't address cornerback because Cam Smith has got you. All I'm saying is I'm not at the point with him where a lot of the fan base is, where they're just ready to write him off. Okay, you can cut Cam Smith, whatever. Who cares? Move on. I'm not at that point with him. I'd like to see him get a full off season. Hopefully be healthy for an entire year. We'll see if that works out. Hasn't in the past. But what I'm saying is let's get him an off season. Let's get him a complete preseason and see what those results net you. I'm still all for adding to the room. I'm not saying he's your answer there. I'm just saying I don't know if I'm ready to give up on him just yet.
Yeah, we shouldn't be, because I mean, what you said about moving on from guys earlier, right? We talked about the touchdown run from Achane there. If you pay attention to the tight end that's on the front side of that strong side zone blocking Nick Bosa, there's Julian Hill. And if we did what fans wanted with Julian Hill earlier in this season, like half of them would have cut him completely. And, when you move on from guys too soon, I'm not saying that Igbenogany's that situation, right? But it looks worse when you move on from a guy too soon, he goes somewhere else and succeeds. To the Cam Smith point, like I don't want to go into a season saying that Cam Smith is, corner number 3 or 4, right? But if you're still looking at him to be the 5th or 6th corner on your roster, I have no issues with that. But it's definitely not somebody that I'm looking to move away from completely and just, throw that entire evaluation in the trash.
So now that we talked about what we're going to do to fix the off-season roster, the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, and I know Eric's made his point about what's going to ultimately happen, Miami is still mathematically in this thing. Next week, they play Cleveland. Cleveland is not good. And there was a time, and I have to say, at the very least, I will admit, I don't think they're going to make it either. I don't think they're going to get the help they need. But any given Sunday, Miami was supposed to lose against San Francisco. When we did our preseason predictions, most of us had already written off San Francisco loss, and that did not happen. So you never know. Jacksonville almost came back and beat their opponents. If Anthony Richardson has a bad game, you never know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I am terrified of Dorian Thompson Robinson. I was watching Browns Bengals, and I said to somebody that I was watching, I was like, this guy's gonna run for 150 against the Dolphins next week. That's what terrifies me. Is he can run. I would almost rather see Jameis than DTR. Well, maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a good.
I feel like if I can't remember the guy's name as opposed to the other guy that we could be facing, I feel like that should be some kind of an indication of who's the better one. Like who's Dorian Thompson? What's his face again? I don't even know.
Whoa.
Who's DTR?
How many times have the Dolphins lost to that guy though that you don't know whose name it is?
Listen, I'm not gonna let my Thad Lewis trauma make me scared of this other dude, okay? I just not. It's a different regime. I'm not gonna let the Thad Lewis trauma beat me. I'm just not.
How about just the Dolphins versus mobile quarterbacks? Like that.
Okay.
We don't have to know his name, but this guy can run, and that's something that the Dolphins have struggled with this season.
Yes, they have, but that's with quarterbacks who, most of the time when they face a quarterback who can run, that quarterback also has the capability of throwing.
Did you see them play the Colts and Anthony Richardson? Because Anthony Richardson was not capable of throwing the football in that game.
Right, but he was a first round pick that had some level of pedigree and reputation to him. Dorian Thompson Robinson, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, but it's like who is he? Was he even drafted? Who is this guy?
I think it was like a 3rd round pick.
Ooh. Hold on. Dorian Thompson Robinson. He's 25. He what here? Let me see his Wikipedia page. Let's see. He was 5th round pick.
5th, okay.
With the Browns. So with all this time that he's had, he's done nothing. Like, I'm sorry. No, I'm not scared of him. Sorry. I'd be more scared of Jameis. I just would be. Just because he has that Ryan Fitzpatrick gamesmanship gene in him that says you might get the best quarterback you ever seen, or you might get the worst quarterback, but you might get that best one. With this guy DTR, nah, I refuse, Eric.
All I'm saying is, if it better be the defensive line and the linebackers better get to him. Because if he gets to the second level, I do not trust anyone.
You know what
in
has
that
to
secondary to bring him down.
Do you know what has to happen for him to be able to run around with the football? he has to have a place to run to. So if Chop is after him and Sealer and Campbell are up the middle, that means he only has one direction to go. There's got to be at least one guy on the left side that can actually stop the guy.
You would think.
It will be fine. They'll be fine. We just need the who is it? The Broncos? Not the
Broncos need to
Colts.
lose to the Colts need to lose, and the Broncos need to lose out. Colts need to lose one, Broncos need to lose out, Dolphins need to win their next two. That's what it is.
Well, the Broncos don't have an easy schedule ahead of them.
Well, what you need to root for in that world is for Pittsburgh to beat Kansas City this weekend so that Kansas City is potentially still playing for home field advantage week 18 when they play the Broncos. Because otherwise, if they win, they clinch the 1 seed and they're probably resting their starters week 18.
I feel like we talk about teams doing that too often. I really do. I don't think players like getting benched most of the time, even if it's for a game that's not important. Because there are players who have incentives in their contracts and they want to be able to say, I did the thing and I'm in, so give me my money.
Yeah, but the Chiefs have done that in the past. I mean, it's not like
I don't think
the whole roster.
I don't think Patrick Mahomes is sitting there on an incentive laden deal, and that's really the most important play.
No, but I'm sure he wants to play. Like, who even is the backup for the Chiefs? I don't even know who's the Chiefs
Carson Wentz.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's not a total scrub. Like, he can play. So
Carson Wentz against the Broncos defense will net you very bad results.
Any given Sunday, Eric. Listen, you're trying to pull the any given Sunday for Miami to lose to Cleveland because of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And now you're saying that, there's no way the Colts could ever lose to these other guys. So I'm saying there's no way the Dolphins can lose. And you're saying, well, any given Sunday, this guy might run for 150 yards and we lose. I'm like, no.
No. It's mostly about the Dolphins not being able to contain running quarterbacks. That's
you're saying any given Sunday. The obviously less talented quarterback.
Also, you're. How about this? You're also going to Cleveland on the road at night. What if you're dealing with a foot of snow?
Not at night. It got moved up.
Oh, it did. You're right.
So,
but
it's actually supposed to be pretty nice there. I think it's supposed to be like.
So. I hope so.
I think it's supposed to be like 50 and a chance of rain. I was just looking at that forecast today.
Well, if it rains, then it's going to be not very nice all of a sudden. That wet rain is worse than snow. I think. I'm not an expert on weather, but I feel like wet rain is worse than snow.
50-degree wind.
I think dry rain is a lot
different.
I think dry rain is a lot worse than snow.
Yeah, absolutely. Dry rain is the worst.
I think I said something wrong somewhere.
No, it's just wet rain is a little redundant.
Yes, it is. And I just realized where I went wrong there. I should have said cold rain. Cold rain is what I meant to say.
Yeah, but like I said, a 50-degree rain is much different than a 35-degree rain.
Yeah, certainly.
My fiance said freezing rain. Like, is there a difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's definitely a difference.
Isn't freezing rain just snow?
No, it's kind of like a snowy, watery, slurry mix.
There's too many different kinds of snow. I'm a Floridian. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. Miami they're still fighting. I'll give them credit for that. They're not letting it go. And with a little help, you never know. They could still make it. Until they're mathematically eliminated, we're going to keep looking. We're going to keep treating it like there's still a shot. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for joining us. We will be back. You know what? No. Tuesday is Christmas Eve. Do we want to do a show on Christmas Eve?
I would probably move it to Thursday. Does the network do anything on Thursday?
I don't know, but you know what? That doesn't mean we can't still do our thing. So yeah. We'll push Pulse to Thursday just because we need our Christmas family time. All right. So Thursday was what we'll do Pulse. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you all next time for the next episodes of the Final Yard, the pregame yard prep, all that good stuff. Have a good night.
Thank you for watching the 5 Reasons Weather Report.
Yeah.